If you grew up in the 90s, your entire identity as a gamer came down to one single question. Are you a Nintendo kid or a Sega kid? Long before PlayStation and Xbox fought for your living room, it was a corporate war so intense, so personal, and so cutthroat that it literally reshaped the entire the entertainment industry. At the absolute center of this war were two mascots. On on one side, a chubby, cheerful Italian plumber. On one side, a chubby, cheerful Italian plumber who loved jumping on mushrooms. On the other, a bright blue, attitude-filled hedgehog who could run at the speed of sound. But these But these two icons weren't just created to sell games. They were engineered as weapons of mass marketing, designed by rival companies to completely destroy the competition. Today on Drama Radar, we are going back to the drawing boards. We're breaking down the exact chaotic origin stories of how Mario and Sonic were made, and how the creators engineered the ultimate pop culture rivalry. Let's scan the timeline. To understand the rivalry, we first have to understand the king. And the king's story actually starts with a massive failure and a licensing disaster. In 1980, Nintendo of America was a struggling subsidiary that had imported on a massive arcade game called Radar Scope, and it flopped hard. Nintendo was sitting on thousands of unsold arcade cabinets, facing financial ruin. In a desperate move, Nintendo's president turned to a young junior staff artist who had never designed a game in his life. His name was Shigeru Miyamoto. Miyamoto didn't want to make a standard space shooter. He wanted a story. Originally, he wanted to make a game based on the cartoon character Popeye the Sailor Man. The idea was simple. Popeye had to rescue olive oil from the big Bluto. But at the very last second, Nintendo lost the licensing rights to Popeye. Suddenly, Miyamoto was forced to improvise. He replaced Popeye with a chubby mustache man carpenter called Jumpman. He replaced Budo with a giant gorilla named Donkey Kong, and olive oil became a damsel in distress called Pauline. Because arcade graphics in 1981 were incredibly primitive, Miyamoto had to use visual tricks to make Jumpman look human. It was added because they couldn't draw a mouth with such tiny pixels. The mustache was added because they couldn't draw a mouth with such tiny pixels. The overalls. These helped players see his arms moving when he walked and jumped. The red cap. It was added because they couldn't animate moving hair. The game, Donkey Kong, was an absolute goldmine. When Jumpman got his own spin-off game in 1983, Nintendo declared he needed a real name. During a brainstorming session, the landlord of Nintendo's U.S. warehouse, a hot-tempered man named Mario Segal, stormed into the office demanding overdue rent. To appease him, the team promised to name their main character after him. Just like that, Mario was born. Miyamoto changed his profession from a carpenter to an Italian-American plumber because the game took place in the sewers of New York. By 1985, Super Mario Bros., also known as Super Mario Brothers, launched on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It sold over 40 million copies and made Nintendo the undisputed ruler of the video game world. Nobody could touch them. Until a rival company decided to fight dirty. By the late 1980s, Sega was tired of being in Nintendo's shadows. They had a powerful new 16-bit console called the Sega Genesis, but their current mascot, Alex Kidd, was completely failing to capture the public's attention. Sega stopped brash. It issued a direct challenge to the developers. Create a character that can rival Mario, appeal to the American market, and show off how fast their new console is. Sega held an internal design competition. Artists drew everything: an armadillo, a wolf, a bulldog, and even a chubby guy in pajamas who would eventually become the villain Dr. Eggman. But one stood out. It was a sketch by artist Naoto Oshima, the Cobalt Blue Hedgehog, originally codenamed Mr. Needle Mouse. Sega teamed Oshima with a genius programmer named Yuji Naka and a brilliant game designer named Hirokazu Yasuhara. Together, they didn't just build a character, they engineered the absolute anti-Mario. Every single detail of this new hedgehog was designed to be the exact opposite of the red plumber. The speed. Mario was slow, methodical, and exploratory. Sonic was designed for pure adrenaline fueled speed. Yuji Naka programmed an engine that allowed the character to roll and evolve down hills, utilizing momentum. The attitude. Mario was sweet and polite. Sonic was cool, rebellious, and impatient. If you left the controller alone, Sonic would literally tap his foot and stare directly at you. The player, annoyed that you were wasting his time. Mario wore red. Sonic was colored cobalt blue, the exact same shade as Sega's corporate logo. In 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog was released. It didn't just showcase Sega's blast processing power, it completely changed how video games were marketed. Sega took Sonic and went to war. Under the leadership of Sega of America's CDO Tom Kalinske, Sega launched one of the most aggressive marketing campaigns in history. Their slogan, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. They ran commercials showing Mario looking slow, outdated, and uncool, while Sonic zipped across the screen like a rock star. They targeted teenagers and adults, making Nintendo look like a baby toy company. For a brief moment in the early 1980s, the gamble worked. Sega of America actually overtook Nintendo in market share. Playground arguments were fierce, friendships were tested, and the rivalry pushed both companies to create some of the greatest video games ever made. Without the pressure from Sega, we might have never gotten masterpieces like Super Mario World or Super Mario 64. Without Nintendo to chase, Sega might have never pushed the boundaries of arcade and 3D graphics. Eventually, the console wars were settled. Sega stopped making hardware in 2001, and today, Mario and Sonic are actually friends, sharing the stage in crossover games like Super Smash Bros. And the Olympic Games. But the legacy of the rivalry remains. It's the story of how a licensing mistake created a plumber and a corporate jealousy engineered a speedy blue hedgehog to try and dethrone him. Now I have to ask you the ultimate question. Back in the day, were you Team Red Plumber or Team Blue Blur? Drop your gaming history in the comments below. This is Drama Radar, and we'll see you on the next scan.